pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as always, thanks to the veterans and their families for their sacrifice. So, in the packets that you all have, we have a report on the financial department. Is there anything that you want to summarize or highlight, April?
Yes, Mayor. Of course, you can read it in your report, but just to give you a summary, we received, as you might be aware, you may have received an email or two about it from GMA, but Governor Kemp announced on February 1st the recipient for the ARPA funding. And if you remember, those were two grants that we had applied for. Unfortunately, the city of Statham was not selected for either of the grants that we had applied for. So that was a little upsetting that we weren't selected for either. And as far as the grant that we applied for the WRDA, that was the grant through Senator Ossoff's office, and I believe that they sent those notices out also at the beginning of February, and we were not selected for that either. So not to be too discouraged. I mean, it is discouraging a little bit, not gonna lie, but there are other grant opportunities that will be forthcoming, and I am going to be on the lookout for those. And a matter of fact, after I did this report, they just announced today, later on this afternoon, that there was another grant that the Georgia Department of Natural Resources is putting out, and it's for a max of $400,000, I believe, with a 30 or 40% matching grant. So I'm going to read through this pamphlet tomorrow and see about at least trying to apply for that. So we have one alternative route. Of course, it's not for as much as we could have received for the ARPA, but I just wanted to give you an update on that. Unfortunately, we did not get selected for any of the three grants that we had applied for. I believe the state of Georgia had over 500 applications, and they only selected 40? Only 40. So
the same grant that Brazelton and Winder and Auburn received? Okay.
yes,
Did they
which
give you
was,
a reason why?
no, I actually, as soon as I received notification that we were not selected, I sent an email immediately to the state grant office asking why and how it was selected, how the selection was made. And the fact that three other municipalities within our county were selected and we were not. And their response was a link to Governor Kemp's announcement. So that's what I got.
And I called the representatives and I called the senators, and they all know that I was pretty upset about it. It was supposed to be based on need. We have the need. Winder got 10 million, and they're already water independent, and this will literally supply water. When they get that quarry online, they will be good through 2070. And it was brought up today. I was down at the Capitol. That's why I'm dressed in the monkey suit. And it was brought up by Senator Ginn, and I told him, watch how you tread, because I'm voting for Baker today. There was a verbal that was said to me, but they said they deny it, that it was because our audits are not up to date. But nowhere in the paperwork did it say anything about having to have the audits. It was independent of your audit. So there is no reason other than, like she just said, they just sent us a link so you can go back and see the announcement you already know. So, but we will keep trying. You keep trying, and eventually you will succeed. So,
and that, I guess those three rejections should lead us to a discussion about the proposed project. And I put it on in the report, but this leads to discussion about the proposed projects included in the request for grant application. There are low-interest loans available through GIFA, and office representatives have already informed us of their interest in assisting the city of Statham to fund our water and sewer infrastructure upgrades. In addition to utilizing a GIFA loan, the city may also designate the ARPA funds that we've already received and use those towards, help offset the overall cost to the city. When we do budget amendments, we will be including the first amount that we received, which is the $530,000 that's sitting in its own account right now, and we'll have to designate those for a project. So with the potential, or with the discussions of a potential GIFA loan with a very low interest rate, I think there's like 1.3% on top of the funds that we've already received, and then the second installment, which we should receive in July, could help offset those costs. But it should definitely institute a discussion for how and the importance of these projects, and that's definitely something we need to talk about. A couple of other things, just to let everybody know, the finance department has had changes in the past 45 days. Both front office staff members resigned in late January, which posed many challenges for us, all of which are still being worked through. They've caused a delay in working on the budget amendments. However, I anticipate those hopefully being still presented at a public hearing in April. It may end up being May. It just depends. But we've faced some challenges, just me and Joe, and just one person trying to get trained and not having anybody else here, previous personnel doing the training. So my personal job has been pushed on the side a little bit while Joe and I have figured everything out. But I will say that Joe has done an exceptional job. All last week he completed training with Harris and Smart Fusion, our software, so he did spend a full 6 days actually. I think one day the week before, and then all last week. So he did get quite a bit of training, and he's doing an exceptional job. So I'm very glad that he's part of the team. He's got a great attitude. He's fantastic with customers, and we will start implementing the duties of city clerk and doing that training intermittently. So if we have a little time, he and I will sit down and go over some city clerk responsibilities and duties. But I don't want to overwhelm him, since right now it's just he and I. But we are in the process of hiring another person to fill the front office position. I've advertised it on the Georgia local government marketplace, because I would prefer to get somebody in here that's done utility billing in the past and maybe even is familiar with our particular finance software, because it's used by several local governments. So just know that we are working on that, and we've been working very hard these past 45 days. So I'm glad he's still here. And then, in addition to the Smart Fusion software, the city purchased the Smart Fusion software in between 2017 and 18, and it is a great finance software program. During the migration between the old finance software and the new finance software, the accounting structure was inaccurately set up. I know that probably doesn't mean a whole lot to you if you don't understand the Uniform Chart of Accounts, but the state of Georgia puts out what is called the Uniform Chart of Accounts, and our accounting structure is supposed to duplicate what the state sets. And when we migrated from the old finance software into the new finance software, the accounting structure was just not implemented correctly. I don't have any rhyme or reason. I wasn't here. None of us were here at that time. So, but anyway, I would like to get this reorganized, and I would like to get it reorganized for the new fiscal year for FY23, beginning in July 1st. But the process itself shouldn't take too long, but the training of the other departments might take a little bit of time, and there will be a to get this reorganized, because they have to do things on their end, I have to do a lot of things on our end to get it correct. With that being said, I plan on putting that on the April agenda for council discussion and approval, but I wanted to give you a heads up that that's what the goal is, to get us in line with the uniform chart of accounts and to reorganize our accounting structure.
Thank you.
April, can we get a P&L for, the finances each month on our accounts and?
Yes, I typically provide one to you at each council meeting, but I will let you know that with the loss of 2 employees in the transition, and then we also integrated our pay by phone, where people can call in and pay by phone, and I assure you that it has really given me trouble trying to reconcile our utility fund and our general fund accounts. So much so that when Harris was here last week, I had Janice take a look at it, and she sat there for 3 hours trying to figure it out, and she couldn't even figure it out. So the reason why you do not have a revenue versus expenditure statement for this month is because I do not have February or January bank reconciliations completed, because there have been internal issues with the credit card company, with MyGovHub, and being put into our finance software system. So I've got Harris looking into it, I've got the credit card company looking into it, and I have essentially given up trying to reconcile the accounts, because I have spent a great deal of time trying to figure it out and have gotten nowhere. So normally I would, but I don't have those accounts reconciled, and the numbers that I give you would be inaccurate. So I can give it to you, but just know that they will be inaccurate.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay. Next is the police report that's provided by Captain Davison and Chief Underwood. Did 39 reports, 21 citations, 7 traffic warnings. There were 9 accidents, 4 arrests, 13 warrants. We had 3 drug or DUI related, and as always, they do check the neighborhood, and we've been lit up. The other night, it was like somebody pulling in the driveway. No, they did the spotlight as it went through. So, but we have Officer, well, he will be Officer Michael Hood. Planned graduation is the 18th of March, and that will fill that position with a post-certified, and we hope to have 3 recruits attending the academy in April. So we are moving along and getting the police department up to where I think the chief and I probably anticipate by August, September, be able to provide 24/7 coverage to the citizens of Statham. The public works report provided by Jordan McDaniel. They've been doing a lot of water taps. They've replaced countless meters because we've had to go out and reread. So some of them they're functioning, but you can't read them. So they're replacing them because of issues, and they've done several sewer taps and water taps, and trying to keep up with potholes. They've made some repairs where they can, and they'll continue to do so. The water at Hillman Rainwater Park, they're continuing to move forward on that. The water on the lower levels is clear, and they've done more tests, and we're waiting. Hopefully we'll have the results tomorrow or the very early part of next week. So first up on the public hearing part, is ordinance O-22-01. This is the ordinance amending zone hearing and application procedures. This is the first reading. The ordinance amending the Unified Development Code for the City of Statham, Georgia, which was adopted June 30th, 2020, and amended April 20, 2021. This will amend Article 13, zoning amendments and procedures, add Section 13-215 and 13-315 amendments to the application, and amend Section 13-405 sequence and limits, and to amend Article 14 variance and appeals, to add Section 14-117 to appeal conflicting ordinances, to provide for severability, to provide for an effective date, and for our purpose. If there's questions.
What is that to repeal conflicting orders?
So that's, Councilmember Thrasher, that's to make sure that if there's any conflicting ordinances that exist right now, we're repealing those and replacing them with these. And if you want to, I'm happy to give a brief explanation of what we're trying to achieve here. There's really two goals.
Please.
Sure. So, as y'all know, zoning meetings are, they can get a little bit disorderly, and there's a statute, a state statute, the Zoning Procedures Act, that spells out how a meeting is supposed to run, but the way that it expresses time limits is at least this much, but it could be more, it could be less. Most cities adopt a process, a rule of procedure as to who's to speak, when, in what order they are to speak, and what the time limits are to be. And the theory being, you know, in some of the larger cities and counties where they have hundreds of zoning applications a month, and they're hearing 30 or 40, you need to put time limits in place. And it's kind of standardized in Georgia. I would venture to say, well, let's put it this way, in 100% of the cities that I'm familiar with, and I'm familiar with at least 30, 40 cities, these are the procedures that are used, which is the proponent has a grand total of 10 minutes to present, and that's inclusive. So it's the proponent and anybody speaking in favor of it. The opposition, anybody who's opposed, also has the same 10 minutes. If the proponent desires, they can reserve some of their original 10-minute time to rebut. But the idea is that we want to try to limit, this is not the forum where people can ask questions about a project. It strongly encourages, if there's a lot of questions and uncertainty, that the applicant request and the city council grant an extension table so the item, so that a public meeting can be held, members of the citizens can meet with the applicants, there can be a dialogue back and forth, so that hopefully by the time it comes before you, changes have been made, tweaks have been made to try to get it to as close a final project, if you will, so y'all can have a meaningful discussion and analysis of the actual project. So the time limits, the procedure are designed to try to achieve that result. The other thing, the other major thing that this does is it limits the ability of an applicant to amend an application in a project, which is, in the staff's opinion, important, because what you have is, what you see frequently, and we can use the presidential oath example. The application came before city council, there was a very long 30-minute hearing on that one project, and then literally the day before the next hearing, the applicant amended it. That didn't give the staff, it didn't give the citizens an opportunity, and y'all frankly, an opportunity to have a meaningful review of that. It got tabled, and then guess what? Next time it comes back, a second amendment. So the other thing it does is for both rezoning applications, variance applications, special use permit applications, it limits the ability of an applicant to file an amendment after a public hearing is held. That way, whatever is discussed at the public hearing, additional changes can be made, but they need to be be done quickly so that we have at least a week for 10 days to digest those changes, hear from citizens, allow citizens to give input informally. But that's really what we're trying to tighten it up and make the zoning process more orderly, more, I don't want to say streamlined, that's the wrong word, but channel it in such a way that the discussions that we have are actually meaningful and lead to either substantive changes or a fully informed decision.
I appreciate all the work that you've done for this. I was wondering maybe in the future, if we did some of these kinds of changes, that we had the amendments already the way they are and then struck through, and then the changes, that would have been helpful for me. I did go and look at the Unified Development Code and did a little bit of looking through it and stuff like that. It's very tedious, and I thank you for what you're doing. So I just was wondering if maybe that could happen the next time we go through this.
We call that a red line. Happy to do that.
Thank you so much.
Other questions for Counselor? And I believe it was 5 days. I was trying to read through here real quick, but it was like they have, after the public hearing, up to 5 days. After the 5 days, they cannot amend it. Is that correct?
That's right. So the sequence, in the absolute shortest, the calendar changes every single month, but in the shortest iteration of this, we would have the public hearing on this Thursday. The final amendment would be due no later than the following Tuesday, which would give a full week for the council to review, citizens to give input, staff to give any input. So 7 full days before the rubber hits the road and the vote is taken.
Now, would they be given any information to let them know the time frame?
So every applicant that files an application is directed to the Unified Development Code. So this will be a public record. They can go and read it. And if they try to file an amendment, we'll say this is, these are the rules you knew.
Now,
The
when
amendments would
you
have to
come
go
up and say,
through.
well, I didn't know. So,
Right.
Well, ignorance of the law is an excuse.
Yeah.
That's very, very famous saying.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, next up on the agenda is alcohol license application, Statham Food Mart LLC. Owner and applicant, Shani Joseph, has applied for a City of Statham alcoholic beverage license for retail sales of distilled spirits located at 1988 Railroad Street, Statham, Georgia 30666. The map and parcel number is ST05-047, also known as Shortstop Express. The applicant currently owns and operates Shortstop Express and holds an alcoholic beverage license for retail sales of beer and wine. At this point, Counselor, I allow the applicant some time.
That is correct. Happy to have up to 10 minutes. These are the procedures that are actually in the alcohol ordinance, believe it or not. They actually spelled out clearly there.
So, Mr. Joseph, you'd like to basically give an overview of what you would like to do?
Yeah, first of all, good evening, dear Mayor and council members and all for the city people who are here. We came here almost 1 year before December we bought the property, and we did a lot of changes, and those everybody come out there, they appreciate, and that's the line of business we are doing. And then, like whatever we do, we don't want to take everything home. I mean, if we aim somebody to a business and if somebody aim for that, they are not going to be successful. So in a 1 year time, we can say proudly and by the grace of God, we are successful. And one day our customers are happy, and we are doing every day small to big and whatever changes we can do and keeping the place clean and, service to the community, and that way we can also grow. And a lot of customers from the very beginning, on the base of the area, and then they were requesting us for starting this license, alcoholic sales of alcohol. And but we said, oh, Central City don't approve, and we came to know that the council passed for selling alcohol in the state. And so we thought we can also apply, so we can foster the needs of the community in a decent way. So we are still in the beginning stage for your approval, and then still we don't know in our facility state license we will get or not. So we just in the process, first we get the approval from the city, we will see for the state license. So that's here we, and even we tell our customers if anything else what we are doing now we can improve, and we know still when we are there, like customers come, oh wow, this is an old weekly store, we don't know you, this has been changed so much. So I know we have to do so much marketing for that store, but this is personal to you, your approval. Thank you so much.
Does council have any questions for Mr. Joseph?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Underneath the application, I think it'd probably be the fifth page of the application in the packet. There's a question that says, do you understand any false statement or answer made by any applicant will subject the offender to prosecution on the grounds for revoking a license and grant or review? Only thing I noticed was there was nothing checked in that.
Yes, anytime that we have an alcohol license application, they have to go down to the police department and sign the form to get a background check done, and that has been completed, and Mr. Joseph passed with flying colors. And it's actually a background check, and then you have to go to the county and get fingerprinted as well. So,
But for the record, do we need that box checked, yes or no?
I don't have the application in front of me, but if it says yes or no, then yes.
But that's something that can be done by the amendment. He would just need to come in and check that box.
All right, so if we can just get that done, that's the only thing I noticed.
Any other questions? Okay, I guess at this point, is there any opposition? Okay, no opposition. Guess moving forward, we would need a motion to close the public hearing, I believe. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close public hearing, Mayor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? So we have motion and second. So as far as discussion items, on the agenda is the impact fees. This item was tabled from the February 15, 2022 council meeting to move forward in the process for impact fees to include the appointment of an advisory committee to city council, the creation of an impact fee ordinance, data studies, to schedule a meeting with Barrow County Administration, and add a CIE to the comprehensive plan, which is
Capital improvement element.
I stumble on that every time. Thank you. Any discussion, questions from council members?
I just really think that we need to move forward with at least, developing a committee. My wife and I moved here about 13 years ago, and I remember the other day when we were looking at Statham and Winder, there was a vision on the website that talked about what they wanted Statham in 13, 15 years. It had expanded sidewalks, golf paths, parks. They even talked about the Georgia Club, a golf path leading from the Georgia Club to downtown. And obviously, here we are 13 years later, none of that came to pass. You know, we're sitting in the same place. So I think that if we can at least look at developing the committee to look at these impact fees and find a way that we can move forward and develop a long-range plan, a vision for Statham, and a way to get there. I just don't want to look at 10, 15 years and look back at 2022 and say, hey, you know, we could have made a difference. We could have, you know, moved the city forward because I think that we have the opportunity now to, with this council that we have, that we can develop a long-range vision and have this opportunity to achieve that vision. The one that they came up with 13 years ago, like I said, it's no longer there. It was never achievable. And I just don't want to sit here and keep thinking of what I want Statham to be and no way to get there. And I just think that at least we owe it to look at this opportunity.
Other comments?
I'm the one that asked for this to be put on the agenda last month. I don't think there's anything else that I can say, especially that Councilman Patterson has not said no. So I'm totally for these, just to, if nothing else, get caught up to where we should be.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're looking at a way to just, you know, small improvements, parks, sidewalks, golf paths, make people safer on these golf carts. And so, you know, that's what I'm looking at. And I'm hoping we can move forward.
Other comments, concerns?
Well, I think there are other counties who are larger than we are, and they're not all for impact fees, but everybody can't do the same thing.
You know, with larger counties, they have a larger tax base, and you know, the way we are now, we have to use our tax dollars to make improvements, and their tax base is not there for the improvements. And just like losing out on those grants there, I mean, you know, the grants that we hopefully will get once, you know, the audits are done, it's going to have to be used for the water and the sewage. So this is a way we can fund. I mean, I've been on committees that, you know, we've been trying to get the parks improved, the basketball court over there, repaved. There's just not money for it. So I think this is a way that we can get these small projects done and just to make the city better and more livable for the citizens and for the kids.
So you think the impact fees is going to bring you the money in then?
I think at least we can look at it, the opportunity.
It might help a little bit, rather than having to raise property taxes and put an increased burden on everybody. It's probably something we should have done a long time ago, but I see the list here. A lot of these cities on the list that we got from Jerry are a little bit larger cities. There are some small cities that have instituted impact fees, one of them being Woolsey over in Fayette County, which is pretty much the stop sign on the blacktop. They have impact fees because they understand that they don't have the big tax base. They need the money somehow to have the nice things. So that's one way to provide for their citizens. I also think that maybe it could help with economic development. If you have somebody that wants to come in here and build a nice restaurant somewhere, they're going to ride around the city, they're going to look to see what the city's doing for its citizens before they decide they want to spend $2 or $3 million on their development. So I agree with Mr. Patterson. It's something we at least need to look into.
Have you talked to anybody on development committees around what impact this would have on potential developments? I had spoken with Barrow County's development first got voted in, and I was told that we need to try to loosen things for businesses coming here. She actually told me that to be competitive, we have to offer something to businesses versus adding more fees. I think I can see the argument of, the city needs money, but there's also a flip side to it as well. And of course, I've said that, like Scott said, I've said this several times, so I won't beat a dead horse on where I stand on it, but we do have to look at both sides. It's not just subdivision that you're looking at. Whenever you build something, you're going to put an impact fees on everything.
But like Councilman Scott has said, if businesses are coming to look, they're gonna look at our infrastructure and our the shape of our city. They're gonna see a parking lot that needs to repave.
But we can't use this for that. We kind of use it
Well, I
for
know.
certain things.
Yeah, but we just need to improve, just the sidewalks, the parks. You're gonna look at the surrounding area and see what kind of shape it's in.
Would this be used for sidewalks? Because we've been told we can't. We wouldn't be doing any sidewalks.
No, you can. In the document that I provided you, it gives a more detailed explanation, the ones that I gave you there.
But the charter says the city's not responsible for sidewalks.
Oh, well.
So either we are responsible for them or we're not. Or we are or we're not.
Trevor says that we're not responsible for the sidewalks. The short answer to the question is no, we're not responsible for sidewalks, but I will also add this point. If the city decides to install sidewalks and walking paths in their parks, they can be responsible for them. It's really more a matter of who installs them, who pays for them, and what are their purposes, really. That's what it boils down to.
But the impact fees can be used for the sidewalks.
They can be used for the parks, and with whatever you design within the parks and connectivity to the parks, those are all fair game.
And I believe also, and please go back and look at the email, and I wish I had it here in front of me, I didn't bring it. But I'm pretty sure that there's even some landscaping that can be used for the impact fees, as far as, some of the concerns, might be up and down Atlanta Highway. Let's try to beautify that a little bit, so when people drive in town, maybe we're, connecting to the Robert Bridges Park over there, the golf cart paths, or whatever, but I'm almost certain that there was something in there that said that it could be used for landscaping as well.
I would encourage everyone to read Jerry's memo. Jerry has been through this process in Ocean. He's very well versed on state law, relative to impact fees, and there are very specific categories that we can use it on. The two that I vividly remember him talking about are police and fire protection and parks. Those are the two big ones.
Well, I just look at it this way. We could either at least get a committee to look at it, or we can stay status quo, and 10 years from now, we're going to be in the same position we are now. So I just think that we just have to make that decision.
Just to rebut what Gary said, look at Jefferson, Piston, Brazelton, and show me where it's slowing down there. They're clearing land right now. They're on 129 for a public, somewhere in Chick-fil-A. Those people don't care. They're gonna make their money back. So,
How many more houses can we include in our city? Right now. I know
Pretty
that,
good
but
bit.
with the way we are right now with our water situation, how many more homes can we bring in here? I also think that when we're looking at impact fees, we're also looking at business. And we don't have a large business coming in here. Maybe hopefully one day we will, but we don't right now. And that is a concern of mine, is that I know that it's coming, it's here already, the growth. But I do have a concern there for, that's how we get the impact fees, is through our home, through the homes. The other thing is, there's not another city in Barrow County that imposes impact fees. And so what is that gonna tell builders, even though we had a builder the other night say that doesn't have any impact on him as far as where he comes to build, then what's that saying to the builders? We'll just not go state them, Those are some of the concerns that I have, when we're talking about these kinds of things. So there's a lot of rich discussion that we really need to have on this, but, those are my concerns on impact fees.
Yeah, I know what you're saying about the homeowner, but I mean, Gelson Wisconsin real estate, I just don't think a $1,500 to $2,000 impact fee is gonna keep them coming and turn down building a $500,000 home. So,
Again, I really would like to know how many.
Well, right now, we've got 200 homes already approved.
But we can't
And when you
impose
look up,
those impact fees.
but
We
look,
can't.
we can't deny somebody coming here and to build because we can't provide water. That's not a legitimate reason. We can deny because it's an SR1 and they want to do an RR and we say, no, it doesn't fit the map. We can deny on that, but the growth is going to happen. Right now, there's approval for 200 homes. And if you look up at the top of that map, those are RR, and most of that is undeveloped. And if you look out Dooleytown where that development is going to go, there's more. We got down Jefferson. They come and they want to develop those. There is a lot of land, and I conservatively estimate that if it was all built, it could be 800 to 1,000 homes. Now, we have parks that we can't maintain the way I would like to see them maintained. And like this gives you examples here where a certain amount is put in towards supporting library, a certain amount is put into the parks, a certain amount for public safety. So if we did just those three here, instead of giving $50,000 out of our budget to support our local library, it would come out of the impact fees. And if it's more collected on the impact fees, they would be put in protected or restricted accounts so that that's all that could be used for. So it could support our library, and the monies that we're giving to the library could be redirected to things that we can't do now. If you redirect for public safety, for instance, there's money. We average probably $225, $235 a year on the average home here in Statham, and that's not a lot of tax base to be able to do a lot of these things. So the impact fees is a way to get those monies and set them aside to expand police department or bring in a municipal. I know there was talk about putting an annex here next to City Hall. If this would have been in place 3 years ago, that annex could have been built by now. At that time, it was $300,000. Today, probably the exact same thing would be $500,000 or maybe $600,000 to build it because of the cost of everything going up. So it's just those kinds of things that I think it's worth checking into. I've talked to several developers. Matter of fact, just yesterday I talked to one, and he's like, "What's your sewer taps?" I said, $6,000. He said, "What's your water taps?" I said, $3,000. He said, I hear they're talking about possible impact fees. So he's like, let's just figure $10,000 per home. And if we're going to build 200 homes, that's $10,000 a home. That covers our sewer tap or water tap and impact fees. Moving on. And that's kind of the attitude that I've been getting from developers. Now, you're going to find on both sides of the fence, but if our impact fee was $2,000, pretty much the price of that home is going to go up by $4,900. So they're going to walk away with an extra $3,000 on that. If you're building a home that's a $400,000 or $500,000 home, $2,000 to $5,000 is not, and it's transparent to the buyer, as Scott has said.
So this vote that happens in a couple of weeks when we come back together, we're voting for the committee to come together and research. We're not voting to approve impact fees. Is that correct?
Or no, I don't believe it would.
That is correct.
It would be for the committee and to start programming the process.
Yeah, the law requires that before impact fees can be imposed, a committee has to be formed to conduct a study, hold public hearings, and then it comes back. So it's not a final decision.
I can't remember who all can be in that committee.
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I'd defer to Jerry White on that.
Usually you get according to Jerry, just impromptu discussion. Usually you try to get a developer or two. You get one or two business owners here.
I do recall that there are statutory requirements that says somebody, it has to be somebody in economic development, a real estate agent, I believe, is one required position on there. There are specific categories of individuals that have to be on the committee.
So the people that it would affect on the front end, like the developers and the builders and the real estate agents, are required to be part of that committee.
Yeah, two of us are on the economic development committee. Could we be on there?
I don't believe that a council member can be.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think so, but I don't believe that. I don't know that one.
There again, probably Jerry could answer that kind of.
Jerry knows it.
And if you
Again,
all don't, well, his report, I believe, has his
Yeah, it's in an email.
phone number and everything, and you're always welcome. Yeah, Debbie's phone number and his email, so you can always reach out to him. I mean, that's your right as a council member.
Mayor, just personal note, I would recommend if you do want to reach out to Mr. White, do it via email. He's still recovering from some pretty difficult medical procedures.
Yes, thank you.
And he sent us an email, actually about a year and a half ago now, about this same subject, and I will forward it to you because he gives us a full and complete description of who's on the committee. Did I send it to you?
Yeah, just send it to us,
Yeah.
the prospectus, yeah.
Yep.
So this is basically just voting on saying, hey, let's just take a look at it. We're not saying this is how it's gonna be,
We're
want
forming
this
it.
forward.
So if we form the committee, find out there's something we don't want to, we can just basically just walk the process.
Walk away,
Yeah, it's a minimal
and we got something
investment
different.
because there will be some investment on the part of the city, but it would be a minimal amount spent because there would be some of Jerry's time. And
Well, that's if
things.
we move forward to create an ordinance.
Yeah.
So part of the next phase is creating the committee. And the committee, after meeting with, with the city staff and kind of, taking the vision of maybe what the council would like to see done with an impact fee if we do move forward with that. And the committee actually creates helps advise on creating the ordinance as well. So part of the next phase is not just, forming the committee, but it's also that next step, which would be to create an ordinance, which then council would vote on. And that would be, after all of the studies, the ordinance writing, the committee forming, then it would go to council to move forward at that point to implement or approve the impact fees.
And the other question, I don't think we ever got an answer, April, unless we just forgot about it. Counselor, at what point after we created this, did we start charging that, like Mr. Cooper, who is developing over, Lakes of Statham and the one across the road, as long as the building permits have not been issued, we could charge that to the building permits when he starts getting it, correct? It takes a while.
The answer to the question is they are paid at the time a building permit is issued.
Okay, that's what we thought.
Now, if this committee's formed, is there a timeframe that a decision has to be made, or?
The answer to that is driven more by when they can meet and have the statutory minimum number of public hearings.
Okay.
And then we're at their mercy to then develop recommendations that then come to the city.
Okay.
It's more, there's no set time frame. It's more of a scheduling component than anything else. Herding cats.
So basically, once they're ready, they bring it before the council and let us know what their recommendation is and what they found out.
That's right.
But it could still take, even from this point, it could still take another, 4 months to get where we want to get.
Usually, there's another vote to Councilmember Press's concern, where there's tonight's vote, which is move forward with the committee. Committee comes and presents its recommendation modifications. And then there's usually another vote to authorize Mr. White to draft the ordinance. And then the final vote is after that, after it's drafted. So there's actually two decisions that come before you get to your point of no return.
High speed with no bumps, Jerry says 3 months, but typically you're looking at between 4 and 6 months.
And I'm completely cool with it taking forever, like everybody.
So what's the task of the committee? I mean, are we gonna have laid out, drawn out plans of this is what what are they recommending? Are they recommending fee schedules? Are they recommending, to go forward with it or not?
It's kind of a comprehensive look. I mean, the first thing they look at is impact fees even a wise idea given the character of Statham? That's kind of the 60,000-foot picture. If they decide that it is, then the amount of the fees, what would the uses of those fees, what would the best uses of those fees be? So they start macro level and then drill down micro if the answer to the macro question is yes, it'll work. That's typically what a report looks like from a committee.
How do we begin to, if we vote to move forward and we start developing a committee, how do we reach out to business owners and so forth to develop that?
The vote that you would be making is giving Jerry White's authorization to start doing that lifting. It's something our city planner would typically lead the reins on.
So, would go to the 15th, would be voting to decide. Now, it can still, if I understand correctly, it could be tabled one more time. So if council feels they need a little more time, it can be tabled one more time at the 15th meeting. So just passing that along to everyone. So any other questions? Are we okay to move forward? On the agenda, that is. Is anyone signed up for citizen input?
There is no one signed up there.
Okay. Then at this point, we have the minutes for February 15th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Any questions, concerns, or corrections on those minutes? If not, do I have a motion to accept the minutes for February 15th, 2022 regular meeting?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes for the February 15th.
Do I have a second?
So,
Okay, second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
second.
Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you all for coming. Have a good evening.
I want to